Baumia. Baumia means business. Asuogyaman.
Detailed news, unparalleled coverage. City News on 97.3 FM.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
City News.
It's 17:30 GMT. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTFM. It is the Election Bureau. Hello and welcome. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu, and tonight I'm here with
Akosia Oche.
And coming up over the next 90 minutes,
Ghana for Edesum, who are near Dunkaniano. So many say NDC neighbor. Na Dumsa Omodia Bano, Dumsa for Omodia Bay. Na Omwe Pia Ashe NDC so.
As the election campaign heats up, the NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama has slammed the government over the apparent return of Dumso, which he says is being shifted. Meanwhile, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the NPP flag bearer, has his promise for the people of Akumadan in the Ashanti region.
Dia me pesa me yeso eboy kuafo ewo offensive north yebeye tomato factory amamo
As the various campaigns crisscross the nation, Imani Africa has been doing some work on the manifestos of the two parties, and this is the verdict.
We think that if you fix the economy, some of these issues are going to fix by themselves. If you look at the public services category, you don't need all of them to be functioning like 24 hours in terms of fiscal presence.
And still on the campaign trail, we'll go to the Ghana Freedom Party, GFP. There's a new flag bearer whose name has been presented to the Electoral Commission. Meanwhile, there was an earlier letter to the Electoral Commission suggesting that the party had withdrawn from the race. We have the GFP here on Eyewitness News tonight, and later on the show we'll take you to the headquarters of the West Africa Examination Council, WAEC, where it has become a challenge to release the WASI results. WAEC says the huge government indebtedness is affecting the marking of the script. That means the government's plan to revert to the old calendar of the academic year may not happen. Stay with 97.3 CTFM for more on this and many other stories on Eyewitness News. And in business,
liquidity risks in banking sector remain contained. We'll bring you more from a stress test report by the Bank of Ghana.
That's in 15 minutes from the City Business Desk. And on Point Blank tonight, the United States of America decide who replaces Joe Biden in the White House in the Oval Office as president of the world's oldest democracy. We'll be live in Washington, D.C. We'll be live in New York City. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll cover the elections for you here on 97.3 CTFM. It's election night in the United States of America. You can send me your predictions or who your money is on. Is it Donald Trump, the former president seeking a return to finish his term? Or is it Kamala Harris, the vice president who's got the nomination of her party to lead the country? Eyewitness News is live across Ghana on a number of affiliate stations. Let me give you a list of affiliate stations. In the Western region, we are on 100.5 FM, that's Premier FM in Takrady. We are also on Sky Power 93.5 FM in Takrady. We are in Takrady as well on Beach 105.5 FM. In the Bono region, we are on Greener 95.9 FM in Sunyani. In Ashanti region, we are on Orange 107.9 in Kumasi. In the Eastern region, we are on Right 90.1 FM in Somanya. In the Volta region, we are on Holy 98.5 FM in Aflao. In the Northern region, we are on Dasuma 99.1 FM in Yendi. In Upper East, we are on Word 88.3 FM in Zwarungu. And in the Upper West region, we are on Bugli Radio 88.6 FM in Wa. We are live on YouTube, we are live on Facebook, and we are interactive. Join us on WhatsApp 0549 986 996. And on Twitter, now known as X, my handle is at Umar Rusanda. Send message to @city973. Use the hashtag Eyewitness News. This is the Election Bureau on 97.3 CTFM. So all political parties, as a matter of fact, have presented their plans of action to Ghanaians. It is a document called a manifesto. The two leading parties, the NDC and MPP, have both presented their manifestos to the country. And as Imani Africa has been doing over the past years, it has done what it calls a manifesto, where it vets the contents of the two manifestos or the manifestos of the political parties. There was a program in Accra today. Akosia has that story. Akosia, please share with us.
Now, policy think tank Imani Africa has linked Ghana's current economic challenges to the ruling New Patriotic parties and met promises to stabilize the economy. This was outlined during Imani's annual manifesto review, which uses a coding system to evaluate political party manifestos. While speaking at the event, a research associate at Imani Africa, Dennis Asari, noted that addressing key issues such as access to finance, exchange rate stability, and broader macroeconomic constraints would be crucial steps towards economic recovery.
So let's speak to Dennis Asari now. He's a senior research associate with Imani Africa. Mr. Asari, welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thanks for having me, Omar.
Good evening to you. First of all, what's the idea behind Manifesto? If you could just share some light.
Okay, so the purpose of Manifesto is to critically investigate the business plans that political parties sell to citizens ahead of elections. The whole idea is that political parties have the tendency of being vague and making very huge promises, but may not have sat down to really look at the implications of that. And our macroeconomic history, or let's say our development history, of short-term growth and long-term instability is a reflection of our inability to actually address the key structural development constraints and also propose solutions that actually yield results in terms of sustainable development. And all of that begins with the kinds of promises or policies that political parties propose. We know from our manifesto assessment that about 56% of political party manifesto promises end up in the coordinated program, and they become key policy frameworks that are budgeted and government takes action on them. And so one of the best ways to ensure that we are very clear on what parties want to do and we understand the implications of what they have to do is at the time of their manifestos, they have to be very clear and minimize the vagueness so that citizens can make informed choices. Another thing too is that it helps us, civil society and yourself in the media, to also really ask the right questions and find out, so what really are you trying to change? Where would we be? How are you able to move the needle with these promises? So those are the sort of interrogations that we seek to achieve with a critical analysis under the manifesto program.
So what are the big ticket items emerging from your observation?
So when we look critically through the manifestos, what we find is that in some instances, the parties are able to clearly state the kind of service that they are going to offer with a particular manifesto promise. So, for example, the NPP said they are going to cut 3% of GDP from government.
Hello, Dennis. Dennis, can you hear me? Apologies, we've lost Dennis Asari of Imani Africa there. We'll try and re-establish connection with him. This is Eyewitness News broadcasting from Accra, Ghana, around the globe on citynewsroom.com. We are on the campaign trail. This is the Election Bureau. We're holding a conversation with a senior research associate with Imani Africa, Dennis Asari. We lost him. We've got him back on the line. Dennis, if you can hear me now, you were clarifying from you, explaining to me what the big issues emerging from the manifestos have been for you.
Yes. Okay. So, Maru, when we do a deep dive, what we see is that one, in some instances, the parties are able to clearly state the exact service or what they really want to do for citizens or what they intend to do behind the particular manifesto promise. But in most cases, the promises are vague. You can't see them going to do, what they are trying to change, what is going to change the cost of that promise. And that is what we use as a really to mechanism and the promises.
Dennis, I'm losing you again. I don't know. Are you in motion? If you're not, kindly reposition yourself.
No, I'm in motion. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Continue.
Yes. So we are able to tell which promises are quantified, which means that the promise clearly states how much of a service that the party wants to offer or exactly what the party wants to do. Then we're also able to know which ones are non-quantifiable. That is, what the nature of service or what exactly the party wants to do. So generally, what the party's manifestos are vague. They are not specific. You can't exactly see what they want to do or what will happen because they get that particular promise. And that is a challenge in terms of in our current macroeconomic situation and our development constraints. You would expect that the political parties, especially the NDP and NDC, who have been in government before, will be able to reflect and understand what really is feasible within 4 years, taking cognizance of where we are and be very clear with their plans.
So the manifestos are not as clear. That's what you're suggesting.
Yes, they are not really specific, so it will be very difficult to hold them accountable in case they win the election. And another challenge too is that it makes it difficult for citizens to make informed choice, because this is the business proposal that they are selling to citizens, and the clarity of their promise or their proposal is very important.
But in the past, they've been very specific so that you can track them. And in fact, a manifesto used to even track these manifestos and how the governments have fared. Why do you think they are going the way they are going this time?
Well, so I think that it's been a terrain. There are two products under the manifesto brand. One is that the critical analysis is what we have done. The other one is the ordinal counting, where we take that premise and we try to track and look at all the work that government has done around that issue, whether there's been any evidence of work done around that, then we score that. And that is what we call, that's also called a manifesto. That is different. What this one seeks to do is that we pick it and look at, is that promise very clear? And then we also look at feasibility. But what we see is that it's a terrain around political party communications where they want to promise very big things without taking cognizance of the implications that would have either on public expenditure or the sectors within which they are promising that. Or sometimes they have not actually critically reflected on whether that thing that they are seeing is feasible. And so I think it's something that since 2008, Imani has consistently advocated for, that the party's proposal to citizens must be very clear so that citizens can hold them accountable. So it's something that has been there, even though we see a bit of improvement in terms of how clear parties are able to come out. However, there are still challenges with the clarity or specificity of parties.
Dennis, I'm losing you. Can you hear me? Last question. I noticed that you also touched on the 24-hour economy promise of the NDC and John Mahama. What is your point there?
So, 24-hour economy.
Hello, Dennis. Can you restate your position? I didn't hear that.
Is it clear now?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So what I'm saying is that the 24-hour economy is the NDC's anchor program for job creation. And if you look at their key sectors of focus, you can group them into public services and service itself, the industrialization. But what we find is that the key interventions that they are proposing, so for example, they want to implement a time of use tariff system. Now, the time of use tariff system is used to reduce peak load so that you don't get excessive load during the peak time, and which will require you to do load shedding. So you charge lower tariffs during off-peak periods so that businesses can move their production within that time. Now, if this is not carefully done and they go ahead to give lower tariffs, because the 24-hour economy is a voluntary program, it's not a sector-wide initiative. And so if you give lower tariffs for businesses that sign up to this, given our low collection rates and the high energy sector under recoveries and the energy sector debt that's accumulating, we may end up creating a lot more energy sector under recoveries rather than helping the energy sector. Another challenge too is that in terms of providing financial support through the Ghana Exim to support these businesses, what we find is that especially under the industrialization theme of the 24-hour economy, the key things that are critical to accelerating industrialization is that we need to have a way of fixing our tariffs for industrialization. we need to have a way of addressing the lending rate. Currently, the reference rate is around 29% and commercial rate around 30%. No industrialist can borrow at this rate and be competitive even within the sub-region, not to talk about global. Another challenge that we also see with that is there's this high optimism that the 24-hour economy is going to create a lot more jobs. But when we actually look at our economic history, since 1999 to 2013, if you look at our average growth of about 5%, what we see is that the growth and job creation elasticity, that is how many jobs are created if 1% GDP growth is achieved, it is so low that for every 1% GDP growth that we record as a country, only 0.54% of job is created. And so we have not built, or we have not actually dealt with the structural problems or dealt with the real reasons why businesses cannot create jobs. And so some of these promises, we may end up spending money on them, but we will come back to this same conversation where by the time maybe if in case they come into power and they are leaving office, unemployment will come up as another big ticket issue. Remember that we've spent a lot of money on one district, one factory. However, today, almost about 14 million Ghanaians, or about 14% of our population are unemployed. We are seeing a lot more multidimensional poverty now than before. So some of these voluntary programs that do not have sector-wide implication or do not seek to address critical sectoral problems, but are very wide voluntary programs that seek to support but are not really tailored to real structural problems, they end up creating expenditure, but we don't see the result. And so, driven by this argument that our job creation potential as an economy is very low, and so there is very little opportunity for just a 24-hour economy to critically revolutionize job creation and create more jobs. So these are some of the key issues that we have with the 24-hour economy. Our point is that if you fix the macroeconomic constraints, all the other things can fix themselves.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
That's Dennis Asari. He's a senior research associate with Imani Africa. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTFM. It's the Election Bureau. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll follow the campaigns.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens. Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/City97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/City973, and Instagram at instagram.com/City973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 City FM. Let's go on the campaign trail now, Kosia.
Yes, the new Patriotic Party flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says his government will construct a tomato factory in Akomadan in the Ofinsu North constituency. Well, this is in line with an earlier promise to construct processing factories in all districts with competitive advantage in specific agricultural produce. Campaigning to party faithfuls on day 2 of his tour of the Ashanti region, Dr. Bawumia stressed the importance of leveraging on agriculture for development.
Ye duduwari nyina ya ikuafo enti ekuafo ye ya Ghana be ye enti nyame adoma efidie a ye de ama every district ye mfanye kwan no mede efidie a ye beboa ikuafo ye de be hihye district agric mechanization centers ama every district efidie a ye de beboa ikuafo ebeboa ye minim se ebeboa ikuafo. Said a Fred Kayano, a dear me pesami yeso, a boy Kuafo, ever offensive north, ye tomato factory, amamo, tomato factory, amamo in offensive north. Choboy, Nisha tosumi ansa, Yamiadum, meba, and ne Ghana, ye light bill no akosoro. Light bill no akosoro. The entire Akosoro is saying, ye crack oil and gas, edi ye electricity. Ye the fear manonia, oho, nebuo soro, eba, na electricity buonoso Akosoro. Me pesa Ghana, ye fan shisha fufro, yemfa kwine fufro, yemfa oil and gas, no, yemfa tuncheng, and go for solar power, solar power, solar power.
You heard there from the flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Now let's move to the camp of the NDC, and its presidential candidate John Mahama has accused the current government of attempting to shift the burden of the ongoing power crisis into a future NDC administration if elected. Mr. Mahama, like his main contender, is in the Oti region, one of the strongholds of the party, was speaking in the Kratch West constituency as he wrapped up his tour of the region. John Mahama claimed the government is deliberately withholding a load shedding timetable.
Let's speak to Mustafa Gbande, his Deputy General Secretary of the NDC in charge of operations. He is with the Mahama campaign. Mr. Gbande, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. Tell us more on this, your conspiracy theory on Dumso.
Moro, good evening to our cherished listeners. There is no conspiracy theory on Dumso. There is two school of thought. As a realistic appreciation of the issue and a deliberate, calculated game plan not to be truthful with the people of Ghana. The first school of thought championed by the NDC, the second school of thought orchestrated by the MPP. Omaro, it's on the record that before President Mahama exited government as president, Ghana had excess capacity. Today, as we speak, we are facing energy crisis. I would want to have a president or a vice president under this regime led by President Akufo-Addo who will be honest enough to tell the people of Ghana that in the last 7 years, population have increased, consumption have increased, corruption have increased, wastage have increased, ECG is collapsing. Therefore, we are back into an energy crisis. What is the big deal? Why are they not, being real with the people of Ghana? In the estimation and mindset of the MPP and its officers, when you decommission an already existing plant and you move it to another location, you have increased power generation. That is their thinking. But we all know that is not the truth. Today, as we speak, we are back into, avoidable doomsday. Quite apart from that, our producers are being owed and not being paid under this government. Quite apart from that, they have heavily mismanaged the ECG. And so, it is not a conspiracy theory. President Mahama is pained that after all the sacrifice, look, a minister was sacked under his tenure to ensure that we save Ghanaians from doomsday. Contrary to President Akufo-Addo's shouting of doomsday, calculated title he has put on President Mahama. Today, he's in the same crisis. Look, when they went for their Jusuba election, President Akufo-Addo was seen campaigning with a huge ECG standby generator following him. Look, yesterday when I got home, my lights were off. 3 days ago, I was in Ashanti region. Half of Ashanti region, Kumasi town, was off. And so, can somebody in the MPP under President Akufo-Addo be honest enough to say that, look, this is the reality. We are back to doomsday as President Mahama did. So it's a school of thought of dishonest class of people against a group of people who are willing to be real with the Ghanaian people. That is the same game plan they used in deceiving all of us. And we have gotten to this point where we are. It is just a bunch of people who does not have an appreciation of truth. They are not truthful to the people of Ghana. They have refused to be truthful to the people of Ghana. They will never be. The same people are rebranding themselves that Ghanaians should give them another opportunity. Umaru, they are afraid that if they come to tell Ghanaians that we are having doomsday, they will be punished politically. But the people of Ghana are now discerning. The ordinary voter who sleeps in doomsday feel the impact. The factory owners who, when light goes off, they have to run by a standby generator, they feel the impact. The high cost of energy today, the consumer feels the impact. Also because there is mismanagement of the ECG, high level of corruption supervised by the vice president and the flag bearer of the MPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and by the tacit involvement of the president himself, is the reason why we pay more for energy today. The ordinary consumer is suffering. So that is the worry of President Mahama. And I think that leaders should have what it takes to be truthful. The MPP is going for an election. They should be truthful for once.
We need to go, but before then, yesterday you said the peace pact that is offered to you to sign, despite a lot of calls that have been made, you're not going to sign it. If in 30 seconds you can explain to me why, I would be grateful.
The president of Ghana doesn't see the need to be committed to a peace pact. He was hiding. The flag bearer of the MPP was in Accra that day. He didn't see the need to appear for a prayer conference for peace. And you think signing a document is enough? You handed the whole country to these people when they promise you, only to find out that they are frosted. That is not enough to tell you they are not committed to anything they write. They did manifestos. In fact, did budgets, went to parliament for approval, only to turn around and chop money. And you don't think that they are not committed to anything they sign. Umaru, if you want peace, let us call the institutions of state who are actors in the peace process. The IGP, Inspector General of Police, is the chief stakeholder for peace in this election. The CDS, Ghana Armed Forces, is the chief, stakeholder in the peace process of this country, and the Electoral Commission. If these three institutions want to ensure that election day, the MPP does not succeed in handing over criminally produced uniforms of military on their people to go and cause atrocities, we will have peace. If they don't succeed in putting their criminally produced uniforms on their party bandits to go and commit criminality as if they are police officers when they are not, we would have peace. But let me assure you, the President Mahama, it's a full embodiment and representation of peace. The NDC has no single plan to cause any atrocity, rig, or cause any confusion in this election. The only plan we have is that we won't go to court. every single matter of this election will be settled at the polling station. I urge the MPP to have full representation at the polling station. The NDC will do same. But if anybody thinks that you will emerge as president out of a fraudulent election, manipulated election, let Baumia think twice. If he wants to keep his credibility, in fact, if he wants to have a political destiny, let him change his stand. That at all costs, he must lead a rigging agenda in 2024 general election. It wouldn't happen. Look, this is the man, you gave him the whole country. He mismanaged it. Now he is using call centers to think he can win election with it. Is it not bizarre?
Let's leave it here. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mustafa.
I am grateful.
Mustafa Gbande is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC in charge of operations.
We want to increase the votes that we get from the Volta region and the OT region. And I'm sure that if we're able to do that, also increase our votes in Greater Accra. Greater Accra, we won it the last time with only 76,000 votes. We need to win it by about 300,000 votes. And we need to widen the gap in Volta region. MPP got about 100,000 votes in Volta region the last time. We got about 800,000. We need to decrease the votes that they get in Volta region. I don't think MPP can get 300,000 in Volta region.
ye duduwari nyina ye ekuafo enti ekuafo ye a Ghana be ye enti nyame adoma efidie a ye de ama every district say ye mfanye kwan no me di efidie a ye beboa ekuafo ye de be hihye district agric mechanization centers ama every district efidie a ye de beboa ekuafo ebeboa ye minim say ebeboa ekuafo said a Fred Kayano, a dear me pesa me yeso, a boy creafo, ever offensive north, ye tomato factory, amamo, tomato factory, amamo.
This is the Election Bureau, 97.3 CTFM is the station. Let's go to the camp of GFP, Ikuadonko's Ghana Freedom Party. Since her passing last week, the Electoral Commission has been anticipating a replacement. Tonight we are seeing two letters, one from the GFP saying that it has withdrawn from the race, another one also from the GFP saying it is nominating the running mate as the flag bearer. Which one is which? Patrick Tete is the GFP parliamentary candidate for the Asuogyaman Constituency in the Eastern region. Mr. Tete, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you.
So we have two letters. Are they both authentic?
Hello?
We have seen two letters from the GFP. Are they both authentic?
You have to let me know the kind of letters you have.
There's a letter addressed to the Electoral Commission which says that you as a party you've withdrawn from the race, which means you're not going to file a candidate. And then there's another letter from you again nominating your running mate into the elections as your new flag bearer. Are they both genuine letters?
Okay, so you are saying that there's a letter from the EC saying that GFP has withdrawn from the race.
No, there's a letter from the GFP to the Electoral Commission saying that you have withdrawn from the race. I'm sure you would have known and seen these letters already.
So let me make this quick because I am working in public and there's so much noise here. So as what you are trying to confirm is that it's GFP withdrawing from this election.
Yes. Are you withdrawing?
No. So as we speak, within the afternoon hours of today, GFP presented our nominations to the EC, but that was received by Samuel Tete, the Deputy Director of Operations for Electoral Commission. And everything is set, so we've delivered that. And so I don't know what that letter you're talking about coming from. And so I don't know what exactly.
That letter I'm referring to is from Richard Botry. He's your national organizer. Do you have any such person as your national organizer?
There is nobody known as Richard Botry in my book as in officials or executives of the GFP party. So I don't think there's anybody that we can refer that letter to. So if there's anybody who is with that name who is the national organizer, then that person should come out and be able to speak publicly to the general public.
Okay.
Just like I'm talking to you to confirm that GFP is still alive and in the race.
What's the name of your national organizer?
Well, like I said, GFP officials executives have officially nominated and presented our nominations and filed to the Electoral Commission. That is what is important. Whoever that person is does not make any difference to what we've done today. So as I'm saying, we've presented our nomination filed at the EC, which was received by Samuel Tete, Deputy Director of Communications for Electoral Commission.
So that letter nominating your running mate is signed by George Affle. Who is that?
Yeah, that is George Affle is the national secretary of GFP.
Say that again. George Affle is who?
I am in town, like I said, as I wanted to be brief on this.
Yes, no problem. But quickly, George Affle is who? What's his designation?
He's the General Secretary of GFP.
Okay, so who is your national organizer?
I am saying the General Secretary has to lead the delegation to follow.
No problem. I understand the procedure. He's your chief administrator. I just want to know who your national organizer is.
Taking anything out is out of context. Thank you.
Very well. Clearly, he's not interested in answering that question. But we leave it here. That's Patrick Tete. He is the parliamentary candidate of the Ghana Freedom Party, Asuogyaman GFP, for the Asuogyaman Constituency. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTF. When we come back, we'll go to the WAEC, West Africa Examination Council. It has some issues with government. The indebtedness, it says, is too huge. WASI results cannot come through.
Honestly, the cost of dialysis is an impossible burden to carry. Ever since this kidney failure diagnosis, we spend over 1,200 cedis every week. I keep asking if there's no intervention for persons suffering from
You're welcome back. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 City FM. Let me bring some of the messages you've been sending through. Father SK from Kenya in Kumasi says, since the inception of free senior high school implementation, the Akufo-Addo-led government has relegated JHS to the background and examination fees keep on ballooning every year. Why don't you allow parents at least to pay their wards exams fees? Aziz Donla in WAEC says the NDC manifesto is designed to address the concerns and challenges facing unemployment, which is at 14%, road infrastructure deficit, stability of the economy, and social security of civilians. Change is needed to restore, improve, and reset our country. Another message from Fuseini Salifu in Kaswa Zongo. It says that the state should beef up security in the 5 regions of the north, especially the Boku area, during and after the election. As for Kaswa Zongo, there shall be peace forever. Evans, okay, this one from Denab, Isaku Avoka, sending a message from Timpani in the Upper East region. Says, so the vice president is still giving promises. Oh my God, is the MPP really serious in this campaign to win the election? Evans Atuli from Ashaiman says, Donald Trump will win hands down to reflect what will actually happen in Ghana. Eko Ochre in Shai Hill says, I think manifestos have very little value. Sadly, neither their solutions nor that of the NDC will come to fruition because the first thing that will happen is the financiers of their campaigns would do demand and take their pound of flesh. What will be left will not be enough to pay the crippling debt. Nothing would happen. Gastiman from Brekum says the former President Mahama and the NDC have consistently been complaining about the depreciation of the cedi, but they don't tell us exactly what they can do differently. I don't think they have any solutions. Akosia.
Now, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice Godfred Yeboah-Dame says his office has saved the country some $9 billion from legal arbitration. Mr. Dame says series of suits against the government by multinational companies have been met with stiff opposition by the AG's department. Speaking at the first ever public sector lawyers conference in Accra, Godfred Yeboah-Dame says the Attorney General is ready to defend the state.
Whilst arbitration is started to assure neutrality, privacy, and efficiency in the litigation of disputes, arbitral claims filed against the government, if not diligently managed, have the tendency to collapse the entire Ghanaian economy. A single arbitral claim, if successful, can bring the economy of a developing country as Ghana to its knees. In point of fact, over the past 4 years, the value of arbitral claims against the Republic has been in excess of $9 billion. And I cite a few to illustrate the point. The financial claim by ENI Vitor against Ghana, which was initially $7 billion and subsequently reduced to $915 million after challenge in the course of proceedings by Ghana. In fact, any of these amounts, $7 billion or $950 million, could have collapsed the Ghanaian economy.
You heard that from Godfred Yeboah-Dame, Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Let's go to the West Africa Examination Council, WAEC. John Kapi is head of public affairs at the WAEC. We are told that government indebtedness is affecting the organization or the release of the WASI results. Sir, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening to you. How bad is the situation?
Well, good evening and good evening to your listeners. Before the exams started, we indicated that the government had given us money to be able to conduct the examination, and the assurances were that once the exam was over, more releases will be made in order that we'll be able to, go ahead with our post-examination activities. But as we speak, despite meetings that have been held, we still have not had any money hitting our accounts yet. And so our fear is that this would, jeopardize the marking exercise.
How much are we talking about?
Well, I do not have the exact figure with me right now, but then the amount for the WAS school candidates for 2024 was 186.437 617.50 million. So let's say just about 186 million, and we received about 60 0.9 million to commence the examination. So I would say that we received about a third of the amount needed. And so we decided to do a kind of scale of preference, and by virtue of that scale of preference, we're able to conduct the examination. So we've just started with the post-examination activities. We're having the coordination of assistant examiners, and want to ensure that there's money to pay them so that, the people don't get discouraged somewhere along the line, and that will also affect our timelines.
What that means is that the WASI results will not come out the time you were planning to bring it out. When were you estimating to bring the WASI results out, and what does this non-payment of your monies mean?
Well, so we're looking at the second week of December. So at least between the 9th and the 15th of December, we're sure that we'll be able to release the results. But as we speak, lack of funds probably could jeopardize or could make us move the release date forward.
And that would also have an effect on the reversion of the calendar, wouldn't it?
Well, for the calendar, fortunately for us, and now for the BEC, we got the funds needed, so we've been able to conduct the examination, and the candidates have been placed, and so they are in school as we speak. So with them, they are supposed to be the end product, if you want. At the end of the day, they would get to Form 3, and they will be able to make them write the examination in May, June with the other member countries. But then if we delay with the WASI results, what happens is that universities may also have difficulty, starting their academic year, because it is the products of these senior high schools who are going to go into the tertiary institutions.
Has the government said anything to you since you started raising issues?
Well, my head of office and the director of finance have been in meetings. They've written letters to the ministry. I'm told that some assurances were given, but as we speak, there is no sign of any money, coming to WAEC yet.
Very well. Thank you so much. Do keep fingers crossed. Hopefully you may get your money coming tonight. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
That's John Kapi. He's head of public affairs at the West Africa Examination Council, WAEC. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTFM. We will return with business news, and then on Point Blank, we are going to United States of America. It's election night in the U.S.
Eyewitness News.
policies that affect your business. City Business News. Be informed.
Time now for the Tuesday's edition of the City Business News on Eyewitness News. I'm Makosi Hoche. The details now. Ghana's banking sector is not facing significant liquidity risks as long as Government of Ghana bonds remain easy to trade. All this was captured in a stress test report by the Bank of Ghana. Imani Africa from the City Business Desk has more.
The central bank stress test shows that most banks can handle daily deposit withdrawals between 1 and 4% for up to 30 days, as long as the Government of Ghana bonds market is active. However, if the Government of Ghana bonds market becomes illiquid, most banks would struggle to cope with daily withdrawals above 1% over 30 days. The stress test results suggest that a 16% increase in interest rates over the next year could lower the capital adequacy ratio from 13.85% to 11.57%. However, the results also indicates that a decline in interest rates could actually strengthen the financial positions of banks. This is because more liabilities would adjust to the lower rate than assets, which would improve the bank's overall solvency. The Bank of Ghana also found that fluctuations in the exchange rate have a limited impact on the solvency of banks. The test shows that a sharp change in the value of the Ghanaian cedi against the US dollar would have a minimal effect on the bank's financial health due to existing limits on the bank's exposure to currency risk.
That was Imani Africa bringing that report. Now, local farmers that in the cocoa industry are demanding that the Ghana Cocoa Board states its position on whether it intends to further increase the farm gate price of the commodity. Our reports indicate that cultivators of the cash crop are refusing to sell as they anticipate higher prices. All sector players, especially buyers, have raised concerns over how the decision by the farmers to hoard the beans was negatively impacting them. Speaking to City Business News, however, President of the Mancron Cocoa Farmers Cooperative, Francis Taino, called on Cocoa Board to come clear on any possible adjustments.
Looking at how this thing has generated a lot of concerns, I was expecting Cocoa Board to come out with a clear statement whether they will increase it or not, so that farmers will be free and sell their cocoa to LBC, so that government can get what the cocoa that they were expecting to be able to sell and get the proceeds to support the economy. They should come out clearly so that all those doubts will stop. Because I think because it's a political season, people are trying to make advantage of all those things, and I think it's not helping the sector. So assuming that you are an LBC and you are being funded by a chocolate company to buy maybe 10,000 tons for the LBC within a week, and you have been given the fund, and within the week you are not able to buy, it means that chocolate company wouldn't advance money to you in the subsequent week because you couldn't comply with the agreement that you had, and which is going to affect the sector in a little bit. So we are all appealing that to be able to help all of us, the farmers, the LBCs, Cocoa Board, and the chocolate producing companies, it's better the sector comes out clearly for all of us to understand.
That was the president of the Mancron Cocoa Farmers Cooperative, Francis Taino. Now, country director of the MasterCard Foundation, Rika Wegamba, has highlighted the potential of online work to create economic opportunities for the African youth. Speaking at the Ghana Remote and Online Work Stakeholder Gathering developed by Generation Ghana in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, she underscored how remote and online work could become a game-changing frontier for the continent.
As we celebrate a year of implementation of the GROW program and learning valuable lessons along the way, the theme invites us as stakeholders and partners to progress, to go beyond traditional approaches, to dig deeper, and to ensure that the impact of our efforts will stand the test of time. Africa's online work ecosystem is growing rapidly, spurred by increasing internet connectivity, digital literacy initiatives, and the spread of freelance platforms. More young Africans accessing remote and online work opportunities than ever before. By 2030, Africa will be home to over 1/3 of the world's young people. The Africa's Development Bank estimates that nearly 230 million jobs across sub-Saharan Africa will require some level of digital skills by 2030. Online work offers a unique way to meet the demand, as it allows young Africans to develop in-demand skills and connect with global job opportunities without the need to migrate. Countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa are already emerging as hubs for online work, and I hope we'll have Ghana.
That was voice of Reka Wigamba, Country Director of the MasterCard Foundation. Now, Country Programs Director for Generation Ghana, Van Dyke Lomote, on his part, emphasized the importance of the Ghana Remote and Online Work Program in tackling unemployment issues.
Currently, our program covers AWS cloud computing, web development, digital marketing, digital customer support, and then web dev. And so with these 5 professions that we've outlined, within 90 days, the guarantee is that when you come through our programs and you graduate within 90 days, we will support you to gain employment. And as it stands today, we've done that for 76% of the graduates that have gone through our program. We're not only concerned about the numbers we are churning out, we're also particularly concerned about durability. And when we talk about durability, it's not just a numbers game for us, the real life transformation that is happening. 40% of people that come into our program are unemployed, and we're unemployed for more than 6 months. And by the intervention of our program, 90 days post-graduation, they gain employment.
That was Van Dyke Lomote, Country Programs Director for Generation Ghana. Now, finally, the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders and other concerned stakeholders are urging the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Shippers Authority, Kwesi Bafo Sapong, to enforce the provisions in the new shippers law aimed at addressing unfair business practices at the ports. Their call follows the recent enactment of the Ghana Shippers Authority law, which seeks to facilitate commercial activities for shippers. Or the law specifically targets the issue of excessive and unjust charges that burden traders using Ghana's sea, ports, airports, and land borders for international trade. Johnny Mante is chairman of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders in Tema.
I have never even believed in that assertion that the law was weak. The law that tells you that come and negotiate. If you don't, these are the sanctions. How weak is that? Okay, set as that. Now you have an act. That was an error. You have an act. We are only expecting that the shipping lines will go all out. Thankfully, we hear there is a new sheriff in town. There is a new shippers authority boss. He is a new person, new ideas. We are hoping that he will take that act and run with it. Spare no one. I can tell you in the first 2 months that price of goods and services will go down. I can tell you in the first month that you will see the dollar begin to drop straight away. No two ways about it. You can check. Let the Ghana Shippers Authority sit these guys down and tell them, look, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't charge this. If you have 1 million containers that come through to Tema and a line on one of their illegitimate line items is charging $1,000, just $1,000, multiply 1,000 by 1 million, how much is that? That's crazy money, free money, and it's not as if they are working.
You heard there from Chairman of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders in Tema, Johnny Manti, wrapping up the Tuesday edition of the City Business News on Eyewitness News. My name is Akosia Ochedu. Stay with us. Up next is Point Blank.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/City97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/City973, and Instagram at Instagram.com/City973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
97.3 City FM is a station. This is Point Blank on the Election Bureau. Tonight on Point Blank, we are in the United States of America. That country is voting today. The sitting Vice President Kamala Harris going against the former President Donald J. Trump. Will the Democrats break the 8, or the Republicans will return to the White House? Actually, the Democrats will not be breaking the 8 because they won in 2020. So would they be completing the 8? Let's go on the phone lines and speak to Kane Farabo. He is a Midwest correspondent covering the election. So you're welcome to City FM in Accra, Ghana.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. For an ordinary Ghanaian listening to us tonight, what do they need to know about your elections?
Well, if opinion polling holds true as the votes are being counted, it's going to be a very close result, at least as it pertains to the electoral college votes that the candidates will receive. But the opinion polling shows, while nationally Vice President Kamala Harris has a slight advantage over former President Trump, in the critical states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, they're polling almost even. And the outcome of just probably 5 to 7 states in this result will determine who the president is.
In 2016, the polls got it wrong. In this year, a lot is being said about the polls. Can the polls get it right this time around?
The short answer is it's not an exact science, so no. The polls could get it very wrong, again, like they did in 2016. But pollsters will tell you that they have modified the way that they ask questions and that they've modified their processes so that they can provide a more accurate result. But it's opinion polling, meaning that that's how the voters who are questioned about the circumstances feel the day that they are called or asked the questions. And so does that sentiment change by the time they actually cast their ballot, or are they being honest and truthful as to how they're going to fill out their ballot? That is the ultimate question, and only the vote tally delivers those results to us.
I see. Now, talk to us about your elections generally. We do know that a number of people have already voted, and even though today is election day, how does that work?
So in the lead up to our election day, voters have the option in many states around the country to fill out a mail-in ballot several weeks ahead of the election, and they also have the opportunity in some states to be able to go to early polling sites, meaning that some precincts in some areas have the ability to allow voters to come up and vote in person at a select location where they can cast their ballot if they cannot cast that ballot on election day or they don't want to. Early voting is a relatively new phenomenon in the United States over the last several decades, but it provides voters the ability to have flexibility in how they cast their ballots, and it's becoming embraced by both political parties now, especially leading up to this election.
Does it mean that you already have an idea how the nation votes? You have only some 6 or 7 states that determine this election. Is that the understanding we should have from here?
Well, actually, it's not telling us what the results are yet. What it tells us is how big turnout has been, and I think that there have been over 75 million early votes cast. Typically, in an election, we'll see maybe anywhere from 150 to 170 million votes being cast in the United States, maybe more than that. So, what that represents, we still have to figure out what that early voting number is, but what that would represent is a certain percentage of the overall number of people who will be casting a ballot. But it doesn't necessarily tell us who they're voting for. Some sentiment would say that the early voting numbers this time around are favoring Republican candidates up and down the ballot, and obviously, by extension, former President Donald Trump. But those votes will not be those votes will not be tallied really until the ballots are being counted tonight after all the votes have been brought in.
My question was actually about the swing states. It appears everything comes down to those states, 6 or 7 of them. Does it mean that generally you already know who wins which state, and that is uncontestable, save these 6 states?
Yeah, so for instance, the last time I live in the state of Illinois, even though right now I'm in Wisconsin covering the election, and so my home state of Illinois hasn't voted for a Republican presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan in 1984, I believe, and perhaps George Bush in 1988. So Illinois is reliably Democrat. That state will vote for whoever the Democratic nominee for president is. So New York also follows that, and so does California. So those are reliably states that are reliably voting for a Democrat. Whereas also you have reliably Republican states, such as like Wyoming and North and South Dakota. Also, Texas has been reliably Republican. So, yeah, the outcome in those states, more or less we understand what the outcome will be, which is why the candidates like former President Trump haven't been in those states, or really haven't been in those states, although President Trump visited New York City and gave a rally at Madison Square Garden. That's why some of those candidates avoid the states that they know that they've kind of locked in.
Now, as we watch election results trickle in tonight, which are the 6 constituencies we should focus on? And what does winning 3 of them for? Do you have to win all of them to be president, or you need to win some of them?
No, you only really need to win some of them. And the states to watch out for are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia, and also perhaps North Carolina. Because the East Coast of the United States will have the results in first, the outcome of the election results in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia will be important. If one candidate wins all 3 of those states, the outcome of the evening will sort of be predetermined at that point. So if President Trump was to win Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, that means that Vice President Kamala Harris would have to win all the remaining so-called swing states in order to get to where she needs to be to win the overall election. So I think for us today and tonight to be able to sort of tune in here, paying close attention to those results in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia will be key.
Let's talk about the voting itself. Is voting over? When do you finish voting? In Ghana, when we finish voting, we do sorting, we do counting, then we transmit the results until it gets to the national head office where a president is declared. Is that the procedure you adopt, or we get the results as people vote?
Well, in many U.S. elections, the tally came in the night of the election, and the result was known, or it was known early the next morning. The last several election cycles, it has taken longer to tally the vote for the presidential winner. In the last race, I think in 2020, it took several days before it was clear that Joe Biden had won because of the counting and recounting in states like Arizona and Georgia, because the election there was just very close. It was also close to Michigan and Wisconsin. So because some of these states have a razor-thin vote difference between the 2 candidates, counting and recounting those votes is important to make sure that that vote count is accurate and right, and that's why it may take some time for the ultimate result to be known. It might take a little longer also if the races for the candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives are fully tallied and they come in. So control of the House of Representatives, that result might also not be known for perhaps several days too. So again, it all depends on turnout, and we'll kind of see how that equates when we get closer to the end of voting, which on the U.S. East Coast, I think closes around 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So once those votes started being counted and finished, the result will be known, and we'll kind of have a clearer picture as to when we might actually understand the full result.
So you're saying to us that voter turnout has been very impressive compared to the previous elections. Are there any particular demographic groups showing noticeably high or low turnout?
I think that turnout itself is comparable to how it has been in previous elections, but what those certain demographics, who they are voting for, is of interest to the people that are kind of, trying to gameplay the outcome of this election result. So I think if you want to look at Latino voters, Hispanic voters, many more of them supported President Joe Biden in the 2020 election, whereas some of that support has eroded for Vice President Kamala Harris, and some of those voters are voting for President Trump. So there's been maybe a slight percentage shift in how some of the demographics, who they're voting for. But as far as turnout, I think the conventional wisdom here is that energizing young suburban women voters and suburban women voters to turn out and vote, that is a key prize for both political parties, and that demographic would favor the Democrats right now.
Have the candidates been saying anything since voting started or their campaigns?
Well, I've been here kind of seeing how the voting is going in Wisconsin, so I haven't necessarily been able to monitor what former President Trump might be saying or Vice President Kamala Harris. I do know that former President Trump has voted in his area in Florida, not far from his home at Mar-a-Lago, and he obviously cast his ballot in person today. I think we're probably obviously going to hear from all of them here in the afternoon and the evening as the vote count starts to come in. But also, just to present a sort of overview here, there also really hasn't been too much discussion or conversation about voting irregularity or violence or concerns at the polling places, at least not from what I've been able to read in on right now. So, right now it looks like this election process so far is going fairly smoothly.
Typically, I wouldn't or should not be asking you if candidates would accept the results, but following what we saw in 2020, I think it's a very fair question to ask you whether there is any indication Donald Trump is going to accept the result, whether or not he loses.
Well, I would only be speculating if I was to say what his response to the outcome of the election would be, but I do know that there have been efforts on his part during his rallies and his campaign messaging in the lead up to Election Day to sort of set the stage for him to dispute the outcome of the election if he doesn't win. And that's not something that you necessarily see equivocated on the other side of the political aisle. But it's uncertain how either of the candidates will react to their loss in this campaign. But I think that one thing should be noted. Every expert has confirmed that the elections in the United States are secure, they are fair, and the outcome and the results, because of the process that is inherent here in the United States, should be trusted. There's also no basis in fact to dispute the integrity of the election, and there has never been widespread voter fraud in U.S. elections that's been proven or substantiated. So the confidence in the election by all of the experts who outline this should be there. Whether or not the candidates accept the result is, remains to be seen, and it's up to them how they'll respond to that.
Finally, aside the presidential election, you also have senatorial and, what we call parliament here, elections coming up. Can you tell us briefly what's happening at the Senate level and also House of Reps?
So the Senate right now, the Democrats control a very slim majority in the Senate. They have 51 senators to the Republicans' 49. And so, the balance of their power in the Senate hinges upon the outcome of several key races, one of them being Montana Senator John Tester's re-election campaign in the mountain state of Montana. In the U.S. House of Representatives right now, Republicans have a very narrow majority in that seat. I think they only have 4 or 5 seats in majority in the House of Representatives. And so there are some key races in California and New York, which could determine the outcome of who controls the House of Representatives. Right now, Republicans control the House of Representatives. Democrats control the Senate. So the balance of power there could also shift.
Thank you so much. Please keep an eye on the election. We'll come back to you when need be. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
That's Ken Farabo. He's Midwest correspondent for the Voice of America, VOA, speaking to us from the United States of America. That country is voting tonight. This is Point Blank on Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTFM. Is the Election Bureau. So we've heard from an American journalist with the Voice of America. Let's hear from an African journalist who is covering that election for the first time. Olufemi is a Nigerian journalist. He's spoken to us here a number of times on issues from Nigeria, but he's currently in the United States of America. Let's ask him what he's observing so far. Olufemi, welcome to CTFM in Accra. Which state are you in?
Well, I'm in Connecticut at the moment, just beside New York. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, you've covered elections so many times, except that this is not Nigeria. Is there anything remarkably different that you have noticed between the election and perhaps how we do our elections here?
Well, a couple of differences. I mean, especially from a Nigerian perspective. Our elections in Nigeria is sometimes conflict, war. It is also something like that here, but then, for instance, we shut down the entire country during elections in Nigeria. I don't know if that's the same in Ghana, but in Nigeria, the entire country is shut down, borders shut, air borders, land borders, everywhere is shut. You probably will not know that elections going on here, except if you go through to schools, where the schools are used as polling centers. My kids are at home, so they are not going to school today. But, every other person is at work. And the election, as of this morning, about 82 million Americans have voted already. That's like 1/3 of the voting population. They voted in the last 1 week or thereabout through early voting. We don't do that in Nigeria. I don't know if that applies in Accra where you have been voting, but so that it helped in a way to ease the long queues in many parts of my own state. For instance, you don't have that long queues, but there are long queues in some other states, and there are different voting patterns across America. In some other states, like Pennsylvania, which is a very critical state for both parties, you still have long queues. You still have like half of the population coming out to vote today. But in many other places, the early voting has helped, the mail-in ballots has helped to reduce the number of people who come in on polling day. So election started here, 6 a.m. is going to close by 8 p.m. In a county in Pennsylvania where there was a challenge with the device, with the election device, a judge just ordered that the election be extended by 2 more hours. So it's going to close in that particular county by 10 p.m. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. And we've also, in the last 2-3 election cycles in America, there's been lots of violent rhetoric, unlike what it used to be here. And that's sort of similar to what you have in Africa. Unfortunately, there's been a ballot box burning. You have ballot box snatching and burning in Nigeria. Especially on election day when sometimes things go very bad. It happened in Washington State, but that's just like a blip, just a one-off issue, not regular. You've had people also threatening. I mean, the FBI just arrested someone earlier today who was posting on social media that was going to shoot some other conservatives if Trump eventually emerges as the president. But you could feel the tension. This is perhaps one of the most consequential elections in American history. This is one of the closest in terms of polling. But, Omar, you may be shocked that as close, as tight as the polling is, the results may not be that close. But no one can say for sure where this pendulum will swing. And, I say that because when you look at the polling, so sometimes most of the places, they are neck and neck. But when you look at the margin of error, it's plus or minus 13. So that means if you're saying Trump-Harris 50-50 with that margin of error, that means it can swing either way with a large margin then, So it could just go from 50-50 and go to like 37 in one direction and the other. So
so
and
you can't even
polling
predict
almost
at
all
all.
the time also is not.
The polls are not able to predict at all. I mean, they are saying neck and neck. So we just have to wait. It's going to be a long night, isn't it?
A long night, and we should not expect, though early results by tonight, we should have an idea of where this is going to. But it's possible in some other states that the total results are not coming until Thursday. It's possible. And one other major difference between how we do our elections